first of all, I'm just going to pick everything and I'll put it onto this layer here. And then I'm just going to, the area that I'm going to look at next is this corner. That's what I wanted to do. So once I've got that out of the way, then I think I'll spend a bit of time just tidying up this lot and just going through that. So I'll make this is the only bit I want to look at the minute. So I'm just going to assign that to bonnet detail. And we'll also, well, I notice there's history on there. I'm just going to delete history. Make sure that's the case. Yesterday's video, the sound quality wasn't great because I didn't realize I'd unplugged my fairly decent microphone and I was just using the webcam one, which actually worked okay, but it wasn't quite up to scratch. But so we take that layer off there, work in this one. Don't like that color. I should make that blue as well. I was having a think about this. I was saying it's another of those areas where I knew there was something about it that didn't quite, when I was trying to explain how I was going to tackle this, I was thinking that's not quite right, but I couldn't really put my finger on what it was. And of course, the problem is that we've got to put, I mean, if I go back to my markup from the other day, which is that one. So I'm going to keep this sort of, this scenario of this fillet going around this way. The blue bit isn't quite right. And I think what I need to do there is if I go into markup and choose another color. What's not quite right about this is the red is fine as long as we've got something to run that fillet over that's smooth, then we can get a smooth fillet through there. But it's the underlying surface. We've got a section here which this one, if I exaggerate, is going that way, and this one's going that way, and so we've got to join those two up before we can actually put this corner in. So between this edge here and this edge here, I need to actually put an underlying surface which will take us from one to the other. So something like that. So you can't really see it from this angle, but that's sort of curving that way, and then it'll gradually curve that way. So if we put that in, then it joins up this surface and this surface, and then the red fillet will make sense. It won't be as simple as that, I know, but because we'll end up having to split this up, I'm sure, but that's the idea anyway. So first of all, I'm going to put in the joining surface between that one and that one, and I'm not sure it won't be starting at this point and then finishing at this point. This point is pretty obvious that's where we need to start this from, but on this end I'm not so sure because this is going to have to run over it, and but we'll maybe start off with one surface across there, and then we'll have to end up splitting it up somehow. And but I think until I've got that in, I'm not sure how that's going to work exactly, but it's going to be the same principle. So I'm going to take this surface here, and what I want to do there is to, wherever it's gone, I want to trim convert it with a ideally a plane from this point that's tangent to this and comes across to a point here, and I can do that relatively simply. It's not quite a plane, but this edge is quite straight. It's got a little bit of curvature on it, but it's reasonably straight. So I think we can get away with, if we extend this and just go from the left-hand view, it's a very good approximation to what I want to do. So if I go into surface edit, trim, convert, project in the Y direction and pick that surface, I can just pick that edge and do that. So that's what I wanted to get to. So I've now got that edge, and that will be tanned in at this end because I've used this edge, my trim convert. And the simplest thing to do, as I say, I'm just going to put one surface in, but it might be split up into several later on, is if I go into blend, which I can't see at the minute. That's under there. Yeah, so it's there. Freeform blend. If I go from this end, and I've got curvature on both ends here, you'll notice that you have to put shape on. Form factor will object. It says surfaces are not suitable for form factor, so you have to put shape on, and I can put that in there, and that gives me that surface. Now let's open that up a bit. So I've got create history on there. I'd actually want to switch that off. So that just takes me from one to the other, and you can see it's obviously a twisted surface, but that's what we have to do to get from this point to this point. And one of the things I notice is that this is actually poking through this surface, which you can't do, because when we put a fillet on there, this needs to be underneath it. So that corner surface going from here to here needs to be below this surface, and that can't happen if that's above it there. So I need to go into object edit, do an align G2 edge, and I'll realign that there, and that just means I can then grab hold of these points here and just get that edge below the surface there. And we can look at that in various ways. If I put some X sections on, so I'll put them at 5mm increments so that I can see lots of them. So you can see the sections there of this surface. As I move that around, the white sections there are now below the surface, or appear to be on those sections. The other thing we could have a look at is we could go into curve to surface and just check if I scale that up and give us some more points there. You can see it. That actually tells us that it's slightly below. And if I go into the information window, because I can't get that to show any more spikes, and I want some more spikes on there. If we go into the information window, I can put a bit more definition in there. If I put cone step in of say 0.1, then it will give me loads and loads of points there, or lines, and you can see just there it's dipping below. So if I query edit this and just drag that down, you can see now we're below the surface, which is what we want to be. And yeah, the information window's picked up on the fact that I've got all of the CVs in there now, which obviously I'm not interested in. But so let's delete that locator, and I'll take the sections off. But where this ends, I'm not sure whether it won't end here. It's got to actually, this edge will have to be aligned to this main block at some point, but it's a question of where does this cross over it. That's what we need to find out. So doing this corner, we always want the edges to flow, so this edge will flow. That's how we set it up. This one doesn't, it comes off at an angle, so I need to extend this surface. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to delete the curve on surface, which I know is there, because that curve on surface doesn't go all the way to the end. It stops wherever it was created. So I want to get rid of that, and I'll have to recreate that. And so we could do the same thing, because this edge is pretty straight. We could do the same thing where we just trim convert that in a view. But I think what I'm going to do is actually put a curve around here just to see where this is going. Before I do that, I'm going to start off with this side here actually. So let's go into here. So on this one, what I want to do is trim convert this with a curve that goes from here around to here, and that goes G2 continuous into both sides. So we'll do that. So if I go into curve edit point, and I'm going to make this degree 5, and I'm going to go from here, so it's snapping to the intersect there, and then from here snapping to the end there, and then we can align that. So object edit, align G2. I want history on because I want to be able to modify this, so I'm going to align it there. Now that double arrow there tells me it's not quite on the end, because I know I picked up on this surface here, so I just dragged it there to make sure it goes right on the end, otherwise we'll have problems. And what I want to do is get the CVs on the curve sort of lying on these holes coming down as close as I can. And the reason for doing that is that if we do that, then we get this curve very, very close to that surface for when we do a trim convert. If we don't do it, then when you do a trim convert, maybe it's worth showing you how bad that will be if I don't do it. So if I did that, for example, let me just save this because I'm going to make this a bad result. Probably have to go back to the previous model when I do this. So if I left that like that, so it's a curve, which I'm going to create yet another layer because I'm going to tidy them all up, as I say. So curves, I just call it curves, and it puts a hashtag 2 on the end just so we can see which one's a curve and which one isn't. There we go. Oh, actually didn't assign it, did I? There we go. Right, so we can see that that's a curve. Now that curve doesn't lie on that surface. If I did, if I go into locators and measure between that curve and that surface, it's a long way out. Not surprisingly, because the CVs on that curve there don't tie up with that surface. Maybe if I should isolate that so we can see it more clearly. These ones are on these holes more or less. These ones need to be on the holes. But if I just did a trim convert from there, and I'm going to save that again just to make sure I get that layer in there. So if I do a trim convert on there, project. Now, if that curve was on that surface, we could use normal. That would be fine. If it's not on the surface, then we'd probably want to use view, but it's not going to make much difference. It's still going to be a bad result. So if I do that and trim convert that back, and then we go back into here, so you'll see, hopefully, that if I take that surface, and that surface, so we've got that curve on surface there, you can see that's, well, you can just about make out that that isn't actually tangent to that at all. And I mean, it might actually work okay, but it's not accurate to what we wanted to do. So maybe I can, well, it actually does look as though it's probably tanned into that, but it's not brilliant. So let's do, see, I can't do a Control Z there. I didn't think I could, so I'm going to go open recent, pick up the last one. So in general, what you want to do on these corners is if I query edit that, because we've still got history on, and I just make sure those points there lie on there, and then this one, so I'm just eyeballing them, which is good enough. Now if we go back into the locators, so remember it was 1 mil out before. If I go back into there, 0.013, and if you want to make it even better, so we don't need to get it down to 0.001. It's not, that's not the point. It's just to try and get it as close as possible. But you can see actually by moving those CVs around a little bit, we might be able to do it. So 0.008, that's pretty good by eye, really. If I wanted to do it more accurately, if I did, but I don't want to do that, but I could actually go into loads of mouse sensitivity. I can pick the CV there and just drag it. Because it's constrained by G2, you can actually do this, and it should allow you to do this. It's actually that's too slow. So let's take the mouse sensitivity down to 50, because it's just it's not moving quickly enough. You know, we should, in theory, be able to get that down to 0.001 if we wanted to, and I'm not suggesting that we need to do that. Or maybe not. I've got it down to 0.007. So you can get it down, you know, as low as you want, but something like that would be absolutely fine. And now if we do a trim convert on that, we've just got much more control. So whether it's view or normal doesn't really matter, because normal is going to be so close to that. So we pick that and pick that. and you can see how close the CVs of the surface are to the curve. So we've got much better control. So we've got that S shape that we had in the, rather than that CV which dipped down here before when we had an inaccurate result there with the curve. So I can get rid of the curve now. Don't need that. And let me just go and put that into the correct layer. So we've got the colors that we can see. So the reason for making sure that that was accurate is that we then get a really good flow into these edges. In other words, the edge in itself is G2 into those corners, or close enough that it won't make any difference. So now the other thing I want to do is to put a curve in around here. One possibility, one way of doing this, I mean, I could put a new curve in there and that'd be fine. You can duplicate this edge. So I've got interactive off, so it's just picking the edge there, and we could move that, put a pivot on that end there, move it into there. So we're keeping exactly the same shape as this, and then we can scale that up. Now that point isn't necessarily exactly where we want it to be, but it gives us a good indication that that curve, which I want to put on this other layer so we can see it clearly, is going to be consistent with this. So when we put a surface in there, we should get some very consistent CVs. Now I haven't aligned that to that point. I'm going to now do that. So G2, take history off, align that into there. So we'll see if we can use that point. The other consideration is that when you're doing a trim convert here, if that point ends up down here, then what you'd end up with, and maybe I should do a markup again. Is we've got this edge coming up here, and then if that point was over here, say, you'd end up with a surface edge which goes like that. And the critical thing is, I mean, it's not absolutely critical, but this angle here is then quite acute, and ideally that should be 90 degrees to give us the best chance of getting everything to align. If we take the one we've got there, that's actually not too bad. That's going to go something like that. Oh, maybe not. Let me try and draw that a bit better. So I think that's more or less 90 degrees. Doesn't have to be exactly 90 degrees, just close to it. And obviously if the, you know, if this point on the curve ended up here, then we end up with something which isn't 90 degrees again, but it's too big. So you might want to adjust that blend curve, or this, I call it a blend curve, it's this corner curve, so that point gives you something that's close to 90 degrees when you come to the surfaces. But I think we're sufficiently close there that it's probably okay. So what we can do there is to specify a plane, but we can actually make a plane that's going to be that we can put history on if we really wanted to, but we don't have to do that. But I'll show you how you can do that. So if we go into construction plane, and I'm going to do 3 points, so I'm going to pick that point. So I'm using control here, control to pick that point. So that gives us our tangency condition. And then if we want history on the end of this curve to see what happens, I can go and say Control Alt, and I'll drag that third point down. So rather than just clicking, I'm going to drag it down. And what that means is if I was to change the length of that curve, the plane changes. I don't know whether you saw that, but we do that bigger. So it's changing the plane as we do that. And so then we can, so what we can do there is we can put an intersect between the surface and the plane. Like I say, you don't have to put the history on, you can just go with what it gives you, but this way you can check whether the intersect line is coming in at more or less 90 degrees or not. So if I go into intersect here, and we just want on the first surface, in other words on here, it won't make any difference because it can't put an intersect on the plane, but we can actually, it says surfaces, but it will allow you to pick a plane as well. So the first surface is going to be the fillet. I want history on here as well, and then we can pick the surface to intersect, and then it says select intersecting surface or construction plane, which is a surprise. So that's there. So now if I change the position of that end, so I'm just going to extend that backwards, you can see that that actually updates that. So you can then make a judgment about where you want that to be. So if I undo that, it's actually coming back on itself quite a bit. So I am going to adjust that, and I'm just going to make that more 90 degrees. It's not something we have to measure at all. It's just, if you make things, if you make corners of surfaces as far as possible 90 degrees, then you stand the better chance of being able to align things. I'm not saying that we should, you know, if it to make it 90 degrees, we pushed it up there and the curve was horrible, that wouldn't work, because obviously we need a good curve. So it's got to be a compromise. So if you find that the curve's not doing what you want to do, then you might bring it back to closer to where it was naturally falling. So maybe something like that. So now let's go into trim convert, and we don't need 3D trimming on because we've got this curve on surface there, and we can do a trim convert on that. So we've got that now. The edge there is flowing through that way, the edge is flowing through that way. So again, this is going to be, you see these corners cannot be 90 degrees, it's just impossible because of the geometry. So the next best thing we can do is make sure that these edges flow. If they flow, this is all about alignment. That if this edge came off at an angle, it's probably going to be more difficult to align. This way, it's going to be easier to align, and also you'll get better highlights in that corner. You'll be able to get things to G2, hopefully, or you stand a better chance of doing that. So I'm now going to save that. So you notice the other thing that I'm doing here is, I mean, what I used to do, what I would have done in the past, let me use markup again, is done something like this. This is what I would have done many years ago. I would have, instead of doing this, I would have tried to put in a surface which went from there down to there. So I'd do that as one surface, and then I'd do another surface which went from here to here and around here and around here. So I'd do those two surfaces separately, and then I'd do this as a separate surface. Not sure how I'd do that, to be honest, but I would build individual surfaces and then try and get them all to align. And what I find nowadays is that that's not the best way to do it. Is you build in, like this surface here, I've built this surface across here, even though I know I'm going to have to split it, but it's much better to build big surfaces and then split them later, rather than trying to build lots of small surfaces. So I was just trimming that out. That one there I could also trim out, I think, just while I'm thinking of it. Yeah. So when I go around this corner, I'm just going to build one surface which won't join up with anything, but then once you've got it and you smoothed it out, then you can split it or detach it, and then it's a much better result then. So this curve here, I cannot remember whether I've got that aligned, and I don't know. Because of that, I'm just going to align it. I think I did, but just going to make sure that that's on the end, which it is. And then we can just put that surface in. So we're just going to use square here. So all of these three edges here are all G2 continuous. That last edge is a free edge. Where it says free boundary, I tend to put G0 position on. What the difference is, and it shouldn't make any difference here, but if I put, say, three edges on at G2, so it's going to be that one, and that one. The fourth edge, if I put free boundary on, it can deviate from the curve that I give it. And it'll deviate if it thinks it needs to. Whereas if I put G0 on, it'll try and get exactly to that curve. So it's better to put that on. Collinear, this is very important. So I'm going to, so boundary 1 is going to be that one, which collinear doesn't apply. But boundary 2, 3, and 4, or 2, 3, and 4, it doesn't matter which way you pick them, those are all going to be collinear. In other words, the CVs will flow through. If I don't put that on, let's have a look what happens. I've got auto update on, continuity check. So I've just taken those off deliberately just to see what happens. But if I go and pick those, and I've got to pick that one there, you can see the CVs are messy, very messy. They're going off at funny angles. Nothing's aligned properly at all. I mean, sometimes it might align with those off, but this is not right. These CVs are horrible. Going up here, they're coming off at an angle. That's not good. So if I put on boundary 2, 3, and 4 as collinear, now they're much tidier. It may still fail in terms of curvature, but much better CVs. The only ones that aren't really controlled, you know, this is meeting this curve here, that's fine. I mean, having said that I always put position on, I notice there's an angle there at 0.11, and I'm wondering whether I should have aligned this into here. Maybe I don't think I did do. In fact, I know I didn't. Thinking about it, that's why that angle's there. So because I've got history on, I should be able to go and align that. So I'm going to align that curve there into this edge here, and so that tangency has at least gone away. Still got curvature failing, but that's not okay. But we need to check that out. Another thing I didn't check was actually, because I've done a trim convert on this one, and this one, and that's always an approximation. And so what I should check, and I haven't done, is check the alignment of these surfaces. This one, I got rid of that curve on surface because it wasn't quite to the end. So I should have checked this beforehand, but it doesn't matter. So I'm going to do G2 project. I can do normal in this case because it's so close to that surface, or should be on that surface. So I'll do that. So I'll take position influence down to 0 just so that it doesn't move the CVs around too much. This one here, we've already got a trimmed edge here, so let's go surface con on that one there, that one. You see, this is why my corner's failing, because I didn't bother to check these things. That one's the only one that passes. So I need to go into object, edit, align. Now I've already got edges there, so rather than using project, I'm going to use edge, and hopefully this will work fine. So that's okay. Got position influence of 0 on there. Now it says in there, it says edge skew. If I go edge align, it will actually make sure that that's flowing through, which it probably is almost anyway. This one again, that says edge skew, and this one should say edge align, so it flows through. That's not passing the test. I've got position influence of 0 on. I could just change that slightly and see if that gets to, say, 0.1 or something, so it doesn't move it too much. Even at 1, it doesn't work. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to increase the degree up to 7, and it worked. And if that did fail, we know it passed before, so I could untrim this surface and use project instead, or just detach this into 2 bits and just make the patches, the surfaces smaller. And then these edges here, this is going to be another one where it'll say skew at that end. It really doesn't matter down here because we're going to trim that out anyway. This one ought to say edge. That's passing that test. And then this one here, that one should say edge. That one doesn't really matter because it's so far deep into there. So that will help anyway. It hasn't helped entirely. We've still got a curvature mismatch here. It says 1 right on the corner. This one says 0.1094, so 5. So that should go away reasonably easily. So I'm now going to delete this. I mean, the other thing you notice about this corner is that it's very untidy. So maybe we should tidy that up first. So I'm going to delete the history of it. Also going to save this. So on the top edge of this surface, all I've done is that's aligned to a curve at the minute. It doesn't sit on any of the surfaces, but I'm not going to worry about it, because what we do is tidy this up, make this as good and clean as possible, make it G2 on all of those edges, and then we worry about splitting it up and getting it aligned into those top edges. So if you do it in this order, then you'll save yourself a lot of time. So to get these tidy, we need to put planes on these 2 points, because these are tanned in. Here I'm actually going to make doubly sure that they are tanned in, so I'm going to go into a line and align that at least in tangency, because I don't only care about these points here. If I go G2, what happens? Yeah, it's still failing on G2, but I'm not going to worry about that, because when we split this up, it'll be a lot easier to align it in any case, so we might not have to worry about these at all. But I just wanted to make sure that these are going in the right direction. We want position influence of 1 on there, so that the CVs join up or line up with these other ones here. So now we've got these tanned in to this bottom surface here. We want to create a plane from this point and that point, and then the other point we want is this point, and all of these intermediate points I'm going to planarize so that they all lie on that same plane. So if we go into construction and we go plane 3 points, now what you want to do is snap to these CVs here, and I find that sometimes it doesn't seem to snap. Even though I'm using control, you might find it doesn't snap to the correct point. What you can do, if you're finding any problem with snapping to those points, if you press control and snap to a point it does want to snap to, you can, and I'm holding the control key down, you can see it'll snap to all of any point I want. So you find a point where it does snap, okay, and then just bring it down to the point that you want. Then I take the control button off, and then I can again snap to any point that works, and then go over to the point that I want. That's if you have any problems with it. If you don't have any problems with it, don't worry about it. But that's what I find works for me anyway. So then we say set construction plane, and if I put the grid on, you can see that we're now in that plane. So I need to go into a view, which in this case is the left view, where we get that point, and that point all on those grid lines there. The intermediate points, those ones there, are not quite on that grid. So this is where planarize comes in. So we go into surface edit, planarize, and pick that. So I've got it in single and view based, and it will do that. And we just repeat that process. Once you do this a few times, you'll find it's actually quite quick. It might seem like a lot of work the first time, that's for sure. So I go into plane. I'm going to go and pick control, pick the points that I want, go into there, into that plane, go into the left view, surface edit, planarize hull, and do that. You can do it in that sequence. The other way you could do it is you could just go, and if I do it another way, where I go 3 points, I pick that point, and that point, and then just hit the space bar is the quickest way to get to the next plane. So I just create my planes first, is the other option. So I then work backwards from that one. So it just saves having to come out of that function each time. And then I can go into, and obviously if you've got shelf as well with this more efficiently laid out, so I can then go into that plane, set CP, go left view. You've got to remember to go into the view and do that. So now our CVs are all nicely aligned. So I'll toggle back to there. You don't have to keep these planes, but you could do, you could just throw them into a layer somewhere. So you could create a layer called scrap or something that is just full of rubbish that at some point you can just safely delete. So I've got I want to pick the, I think last time I set up an extra button down here, but whether that was in a different version, I'm not sure. But I want to go and pick those construction planes there. So I'm just going to go into here, pick component. All I want to do is pick construction objects. So I'll just drag a window around those and delete them. Oh, I wasn't going to delete them. I was going to put them in here, having set up another layer. Right, let's go back and bring everything back in. Now we've only got tangency there, we've only got tangency there, but like I say, this is actually going to be split up. So, and we're quite a long way off where we should be, in fact. So this curve is actually quite high on that data. Now this surface here, this one here that just joins the two up, I'm just going to save this again. We can now see where they cross over. So they cross over here. So let's go into top view and have a look at that. So really, I really want this surface just to continue up to this point, and then for this joining surface to be split at that point. That would make sense. And so that's what I'm going to do. So this one, I'm going to delete the history on there. I suppose I could have created this having created the corner first, but I've done it this way around anyway. So first of all, I'm going to extend. I want to extend this surface, but because of where these other surfaces, the adjoining surfaces are, I don't really want to extend that surface. I want to just do an extension off the end of it as a separate surface. So let me just do that. So if I go into there, let's just isolate that so we can see what we're doing. And we go into object edit, and I'm going to go into the extend menu. So normally we've got this on extrapolate and merge, which means if I extend that, it's just the same surface. But if I take merge off and say go, then we get an additional surface rather than just an extension of the original surface, and that's what I want. And so now I want to take, I'm going to take that curve there, I'm going to take this surface, this extended surface, and helpfully it calls it extend, which is very handy. And then we're going to extend that backwards. Now I don't think that's going to pick up. It does pick up. Oh yeah, it does. Yeah, extend does. It detach doesn't. So I'm just going to extend it back to that point because that's where I want it to stop. Go into there. This joining surface, which I created before, actually I want to reduce the size of that. I want to take it back to here. So I'm just going to reduce that one. I don't know why I'm using extend. I actually want to use trim convert here. So I'm going to do a trim convert, 3D trimming, project in the Z direction, that one onto there. And we then need to align that, object edit, align that one into there. And I'm going to put history on, make sure position influence is 1, yes, and also it's going right to the end, so we haven't got partial on or anything. And I want G2 on there. Now what this might do, we might have to adjust this surface again because it might be poking through that corner fillet, which it is, and we want to make sure you can see that edge there is way inside this fillet. So we want to, we know that the fillet is an approximation of where we want to be. This is also an approximation of where we want to be, but we definitely want this underneath that fillet, otherwise this is not going to work. So I need to then assign a line on this end as well. So we've got history on again, because I deleted that earlier. So it's that one. And I'm not going to worry about the curvature because we're going to adjust this anyway. And then I'll do what I did before, which is use the locators between this edge and this surface here. So that's as many spikes as I can get with the middle mouse button. It won't let me increase it. And I think the reason is that in the past, it let you increase it and it would go to infinity and then freeze the system. So it's better to, it's more controllable this way. So go into the information window. I'll change the comb step to something like 0.2. So we've got loads of points on there. And what we want to do there, so this is what this is showing us. If you look at the shaded model there, as you can see, this is where that edge is below the surface, but where the deviation crosses over, that's above the surface by 0.5 of a mil. So we want to adjust this edge here. So if I query edit this one, and we'll adjust these CVs, so it's probably from both ends. So the CVs will look quite unusual. We'll get a very SE shape here. So this one needs to come this way. So I'm trying to get this point here. So let's shade that up so you can see what's going on. Get that so that all of these green spikes are this way rather than the other way. And then we query, and then we activate that end. So that's all gone that way. Now see if we can do anything to make that a little bit better in terms of, obviously the smoother that is, probably the better. And we could also, yeah, let's have a look at that. So the other thing that we haven't got on here, so we've lost the curvature continuity at the minute. Now I've aligned that in curvature, but of course what I didn't do is check this, which is, so I need to check that, I need to align that. So let's go into evaluate this one. So first of all, that one, let's have a look at that one. That's okay, because there's already an edge there, so that one worked okay. This one, so I'm going to go into object edit, align G2 project in the Z direction so that it doesn't change it in that view, in that top view, and we'll align it there. And fortunately that aligned perfectly. Not only that, but it's brought this into alignment, which is just magic. There is no logic to that. I'm just going to see if I can drop the degree down. So degree 3 is nice. That just makes everything simpler. It'll just make, if nothing else, it just makes the model lighter and easier to render and everything else. And so the other surface that we haven't aligned is this one here. So I haven't got an alignment on that end, but I'm not going to worry about that because that might be just a case of just increasing the degree or something. But I'm going to align this edge. I've got to do that as well. This will then that'll break the history on these ones, of course. So I'm going to do that one there. We've got a surface there which is already trimmed. So let's just go into evaluate. Very unlikely that this is already aligned. I very much doubt it. Yeah, position wise, it's 0.0018 something. Very, very close. So we might be able to possibly get away with G0. Let's have a look. So I want position influence of 0 on G0 edge partial into there. So we're aligning that, breaks the history into this surface here. And of course it'll mess something else up. So let's just see whether that is actually aligning it in curvature. So it is aligning it in curvature, even though I specified only G0. So it must have been very, very close. And then I'm just going to increase the degree a bit and see if that will disappear if we were to increase the degree. Oh, the wrong way. That one. Probably unlikely, but might as well try. So it's broken the curvature that way, not too surprisingly. So I think what we might do there is to, first of all, I need to create history off every time because it's now going to annoy me. And so we're going to align that there. We want position influence of 1 on there. Obviously, it's going to break the curvature that way. So let's take that down to G1, and it's still breaking that. Let's increase the degree. It's so close, 0.001. So I've made it degree 7. We've got tangency on there. Let's check the curvature. No, so curvature needs, actually, I need to tell it to do the curvature. I could try skew because that then relaxes that edge a bit, but skew is then breaking the curvature that way. So what else can we do? So we could also just take that back to G1. The other thing we could do, I did drop the degree of that a lot. So maybe we could try just aligning that in curvature. Obviously, if I align that in curvature, this end will break because we haven't got enough degree there. So we'll need to increase the degree to 5, and then that now works. Great. So the only one we've got remaining is this curvature here. Let's just go into this end here and see if we can align that. So it's saying that it's not curvature aligned, and the reason will be, and we've had this before, is probably to do with the fact that I've put a tapered spacing of the CVs in here, and we've got a very equal spacing of the CVs here. There's almost no taper between that end and that end, whereas a lot of taper there, and that's what can cause these alignment issues. If I just reduce the taper, will that be enough? Obviously, I want to keep this going that way. Now let's switch that round. I didn't see it go green at any point. So if I go too far, then we end up with this poking through, which we don't want. That might also have an effect because that's again to do with the taper. If that doesn't work, then we will have to fix that some other way. Because it's right on the corner, I'm just going to zoom in and just make sure that I'm zoomed in. You can see I'm zoomed in so far now that the graphics start to break down. It's sort of like an earthquake happening. And that's an indication that we're so far zoomed in there that things start to not make any sense. I mean, like you've got a CV there, which seems to be out in space, and it's just because the graphics are broken down. I don't know what the scaling of that is, but it's like an earthquake's going on. So quite clearly those points are very, very closely matched. There's pretty much nothing we can do about that. So the only other thing we could try and do is do this manually. So I'm going to go into the information window, and in here, at the moment we're just getting this one spike. It's because we've got G2 curvature set at 0.1. If I set that to 0, then we should get some more lines, or we might do. Pretty much not. So it is just that one end. It may be that we may not get rid of that spike. I don't know. Let me just double check. G2 continuity on that end and that end. I'm going to take the CVs off here so that I can actually see which ones are which. And I'm also going to take these off as well. Now this is going to be so twitchy, trying to get that, because I noticed when I was moving those CVs that way that it went first one way and then the other way. So it's just absolutely microscopic. I don't think I'd bother with this unless it was A class, where where the model is going to be checked to this level. But I'd like to just try and do it because just to show that it hopefully can be done. So we'll make the mass sensitivity a great deal, and then I'm moving that point normal to the surface. Now you can see that's because I've got the I'll just undo that. If I go into my locator information window, now I set that to 0, which obviously is not the standard that we're after. We could put the comb up, actually. That would be another thing we'd do. Now we get some more information. So it just shows you the variation of the curvature going through. Starts to look very alarming, but bear in mind that we've got G2 continuity of zero in there. If I set that back to 0.1, do we get anything else? No. Let's make it 0.05, say no. So there's nothing there. I'm going to set that to 0.1. So it's ridiculously tight anyway. So let's go and pick that point there. Now that changed it when I moved it. So it's actually making that worse in the sense that it's moving it further down the. It's just that one spike. I suspect it's probably not going to go. Let's get it back to where it was there. I'm going to see if I'm moving that corner. See, if I move that corner, it just flicks from one to the other. If I move that tangency, also going to flick from one to the other. Just wondering. And the other option is to split this up. It's yeah, I think we're just going to have to split it. I didn't really want to split it, because if we split it, then we just end up with more surfaces in that corner. And obviously, when you put surfaces over surfaces, then you have to split them to all the splits of those surfaces. So it ends up as lots more surfaces. And I'm trying to get rid of a ridiculously small problem here. It's right on the corner, and nobody's ever going to see it in the highlights. Don't like to leave it though. It's detach. Let's just see if I detach that, and so if I split it there, then this other fillet that lies over the top of it needs to be split there, which may be a good thing, because we may need to split that corner up anyway. Let's just go with it and see what we get. See if we can. If this doesn't fix it, then I'll just go back to what we had and just accept that corner and try and ignore it, which is very difficult to do. I wonder if I do tangent balance on there. Obviously, that tells us exactly the spacing of CVs it wants to see. Actually, there is another way. The other option, which can work, is, it depends on whether it's practical or not, is on this surface is actually changing the spacing so that it's similar to this, but it does mean that we'd have to have a tapered set of CVs on here. But it may not be. It may be that you don't need quite that pattern. It might be that you just need to bring this slightly this way, and it's so I just saved that, didn't I? So I'm just going to go back to that. I'm going to go back to the, because this isn't helping. It's not improving it. We're still getting that problem on the very corner there. So I'm just wondering if we go to there. I'm going to go into slide proportional modification. I'm not holding out a great deal of hope that this is going to work, but if I do align G2 history, so I'm going to see if when we do this, whether this helps in any way. Oh, yeah, yes, actually another possibility. I know I'm trying to solve a ridiculous problem here, is let's what I'll do, because we've got loads of CVs on here, we could reduce this until hopefully that aligns. If it does, maybe it won't do it. Maybe if I put just tangent balance on, yeah, it needs to be pulled right over there for this to work. So I'll put tangent balance on. If I take that off, does it go back? Yes, it does. So that's where we want to be. Right, so I get to that point there, and I pull that one a bit as well. So obviously we're doing something that we didn't want to do here, which is actually cutting through this surface, which we don't want. So with this display, it needs to go the other way. That was the problem. But I've got loads of other CVs to deal with here. So if I go into the side view there, just rotate that around, and then we'll use we'll use proportional modification. I'm going to pick that point and then rotate that lot with it effectively. And then I'm going to move those. So I just want to get the spacing of the CVs a bit better. So I need to take mass sensitivity off. That's weird the way that's doing that. I can try changing the fall off, whichever way that is. Not that one, that one. Oh, that works okay. I'm not worried about the angle. It's just trying to get these CVs a bit better spaced. Now I've pulled those back, so something like that. And then in the top view again, if I now push that in the Y direction. Now what I can't do is if I do that, that's awful. We've got CVs going the wrong way there. So the limit for that is to that point where this is now going in a straight line there. I can do the same thing on this one. So I'll push that one in the Y direction. So it's having a similar effect to skewing those endpoints. And we're now digging into that surface in the way that we wanted to do. So if I shade that up, I should look at it from the end as well, just to make sure. So some of these CVs have gone too far, the individual CVs. So let me just come out of there. I'm going to go back into here. I'm going to change this fall off to 1 and 1 again, because otherwise I'll forget next time. And then we just want to tidy these up a bit. So we're going to go for individual points, just moving those in the Y direction. So I'm just going to have to go for individual points. This is digging in again, but we'll have to modify this accordingly. So this end view is really sensitive. That point there actually needs to slide rather than, because if I just move it in the Y direction, it doesn't matter. I'm going to align it anyway. Let's move those across so they all look sensible. This end view is really useful because it's very sensitive to the positions. I'm just moving these in the Y direction at the minute. There, so those look better. I think I've come back to the problem again, not surprisingly. And then let's have a look at that in the left view. So we can also move these up and down in Z. So if I move that down in Z, that should help fix this problem, and maybe that point as well. So now we've got that all going into that surface. The other points need to follow. It's a bit difficult to see what's going on, I must admit. So let's go into just isolate that one completely. I'm looking at it from the left view, very difficult to see. Like I've mentioned before, if we go into diagnostics, you've got box mod here, and if I say take subdivision off, it actually shows us what that looks like as though it was a subdivision surface. Obviously it's not a subdivision surface, but it just helps sometimes visualizing where these CVs are in space for individual surfaces. So I think these ones could come down in Z a bit. So I'm just moving them in Z. If I look at it directly from the Y view, it's very difficult to make out. But I think it's easier in this this mode than when it's just wireframe sometimes. That point there looks a bit odd. I'm going to work out where they should go. These come down in Z, because it was higher than this one here. If we're pulling them down, then we are digging into the surface, which is what we want to do. So maybe that one needs to come down a little bit. And then if we go out of that, bring everything back in. So we're still digging into the surface. That's good. And then we've got curvature that way, curvature that way. So the curvature I fixed there is just wasn't using tangent angle as such, but making the spacing of the CVs this way similar to that one. And it's a very odd, very non-intuitive thing, but it's what you find is often the case. is that different spacing is enough to cause a problem with the curvature. I'll just check those. This one's obviously out at the minute, so I want to modify that. Object edit, align, edge, and I'm going to put vector on so it just holds it in the Z direction, just moves it up and down in Z only. So I want history off because it's back to annoying me now, and I also want partial on, and we don't want position influence of 1 on because it's then screwing up there. So this is okay, this is okay. These points here, I'm just going to these ones just bother me a little bit when I come out there, just to give us a smoother pattern. Maybe that point could come out in Y. Touch. It's quite tricky because it's so three-dimensional, and you'll keep looking at it. But I have to bear in mind that most of this is going to be trimmed away. All of this is thrown in the bin. But if we don't get this correct, then it's not going to. The surface that we sit on top of it won't work. Hopefully, it will work when we've done all of this work. Right, let's go and now I aligned that small one to the large one before, and that worked okay. Probably won't work this time, will it? Hooray, it did. So position influence of 1 on there, just so the CVs join up exactly. Time for another save. It's these little details you can see can take you as much time as creating, 3 big block surfaces. Right, so on this edge here, let's get rid of that locator. We don't want to see that one anymore. Right, so I'm going to get rid of that curve as well. We don't need that. We've got this surface in here, some CVs on that. And then if we go into the top view, so hopefully that still hits that intersect point. So I can't see why it shouldn't do. So now what we want to do, we've got, let me just do a final check on this corner, G2, G2, roughly. Now that one there, I'm not going to worry about because it's close enough. We're going to split it up as well, so it shouldn't be a problem. Right, so now what I need to do now is to detach this here, and almost inevitably, this is a situation here which is where we've got this curve going all the way around here, and it's almost inevitable that if we try and align this to that surface, it's just never going to work. And it's because the edge of this surface goes first of all in the sort of U direction of this surface, and then in the V direction. You always have to, pretty much always have to split it. So I'm anticipating that we'll have to detach that there, but we'll see what happens if I just try and align it as it is. So first of all, let's go into detach, and I should be able to do a detach this time, because before when we've done this sort of thing before, where it's an intersect, or where the corner's an intersect, it doesn't tend to work. But because I've got an edge there, I'm hoping it might work. Yes, it did work. So I did Control Alt on that edge, and it's picked that point there. Now it's not quite on the corner, so I'm going to go into construction and set up a point like I've done before, and just put that absolutely on the corner. And then that will give us some, hopefully will give us a more accurate detach. Although, because this, it may not, because this is sitting above that surface there. Yeah, so in other words, it's just projecting it normal onto that surface. So rather than doing that, I'm just going to manually do it and eyeball it. So I just want to make, it doesn't have to be 100%. Oh, damn. I let go of the wrong point. Let's do that again. So it doesn't have to be 100% accurate. So if I do that and then press go, the fact that it's not 100% accurate doesn't matter, because we're going to align it anyway. But the closer it is, the better. It's just less likely to be a problem then. And so now we've got these two surfaces, and you can see, because we've spent some time building that first surface and making sure that the CVs were all planarized, then this will be planarized as well, and it saves us a lot of time if we do it this way around. So let's go into Align. I want to project that in the Z direction, this edge onto here, and that's done that. And then we want to make sure history is off, because I'm going to be doing multiple edges. This edge needs to be an edge. It's going to be a partial edge there. And when we built this surface, the big corner surface, I made sure that these edges flowed in. And so when we split it up, the edges will also flow, and you can see it says edge there and edge there. So that's, in other words, that's flowing into an isopalm of that surface, which is exactly what we want. This gives us a much better chance of aligning things. As you can see, that's actually gone straight in, which is fantastic news. This is the one that's going to give us a problem, I'm sure. So if I say G2 project and try and project that onto there, it's probably not going to work. So I've got Z on. Now, position wise, it's failing. I can't see where it says position, but angle and curvature obviously have failed. We can try increasing the degree. So we go up to degree 7. It's still failing, and the curvature is 0.93, and this is what happens. So the gap 0.002, so that's quite close. But this will probably never align with that one surface. So like I say, because it's going across a U direction and then a V direction, almost inevitably we have to split it. The other issue that we might have is when we try and align it here. Let me just try that again, actually, to see whether it does. Yeah, sometimes, because this is a feathered edge into here, you can find that it can't project right to the end. It ends up here and breaks the position down here, which doesn't look as though it has done. Although this is that locator there is actually not the one we want. That's the one between the sort of blended surface here and this end one, so not the one we want. Let's just get rid of those CVs. We don't need to look at those. So I'm going to split this, so detach this, and it's guesswork as to where that would be. So I'm going to make each surface sort of equal in size. That's probably as good a guess as anything. We'll put evaluators on here. And that's, of course, that's going to be broken because we've aligned this into there, of course. Now we should start off by trying to align that this way. So let's go into Align. G2 is going to be an edge. This one. So make sure we pick the right one. That one into this one. We're having that same issue there, and it's obviously to do with the spacing again. So you can see there's a bit of taper in there, not very much to be honest, versus no taper there. We can, if we did what I did before, which is try and taper this end, then we're changing the relationship of this to that surface. This one doesn't really relate to anything, so actually this one would be the better one. So we want to, I mean, if we look at tangent balance, that's what it wants to do. It wants to straighten them up. It's not the actual distance that's important. It's actually that spacing. So we can get that spacing just by pulling this back this way, hopefully. I haven't got history on, have I? So that doesn't make any difference. So we've got auto update on, so it should be updating it. Let's see if we can pull this one this way. Okay, it's not doing it. So let's put tangent balance on. It's pulled it way out here. Let me revert that. So I think what I'm going to do is because I want it to hold these points and move these ones, not the other way around. So let's go into curve edit, duplicate. I'm going to go there onto that one. So I want to keep the CVs there as they are. And so we'll go into what we're in, surface edit, align, do that again. Make sure we pick the right surfaces, that one into that one. And I'm going to put tangent balance on, which will throw these CVs out. But then I've got the curve CVs there I can use as a guide. So I'm going to drag that back, and you can see the curvature is held. So it's that spacing. It's not to do with the size, the distance it's done it to. So if I make those roughly the same on the left there as the curves, which they are, then we can go for that. I'm going to accept that, and then if we do that align again to there. Now the trouble is with that, it's messed this end up a lot, made it a very different shape. So I'm thinking if I really want these to move together, ideally. So let me do auto scale G2. So if I do that, then if I move this one, the other one will move with it. So as soon as I move away from that tangent balance, it doesn't like it. So let's take that off. I wonder if I can get away with getting just that one a bit better. I know it's messing this up as well in the middle, and but we've kept the curvature. So it's this one here that's the problem. That's the one that's causing the problem. That top edge is okay, not too bad. So this edge I now want to align down here. So I'm going to align it into this surface here. It's going to be a partial edge, of course, which I always remember too late. So I'm aligning that way. Now we've got position inference of 0, 1. I want that to be 1, and I'm going to make that degree slightly higher. Actually, I'm going to make it 7. Now, if I put blend on, I'm just wondering whether it'll help sort these CVs out rather than having to create a load of planes or move them by hand, which I don't really want to do. So let's do that. And I know this has messed this up, but I'm hoping that this is going to work. No guarantee of anything. So we've got curvature there. Let's go into, oh, it's still thinking about something. What's it thinking about? I'm going to save that as it is. So I'm hoping that now we've got a lot more CVs, that we'll get this to align. So align that into there. I'm hoping. Okay, that doesn't actually do anything better. Right, let's put tangent balance on again. Now that's obviously going to screw it up at this end. Let me just revert that. So we need to get rid of that curve, because now we've got a higher degree, it becomes a little bit more problematic. Well, we've just got more to look at. So we'll put a curve on there so that we've got the CVs to look at. And then I'm going to go into object edit, align here, that into there. Okay. I don't know whether, maybe I could just try adjusting that point. No. So tangent balance again. That's what it's telling us it wants to do. We've got CVs down there on the curve. Difficult to see. Gone a bit too far. And this one here. By miracle, that's I wasn't expecting that. But it has messed up this end here. That's not perfect. What we can do there is, because these are okay. Let me just make sure that's 100% okay. It's going to be a partial edge into there. Right, that breaks that. So let's make that G1. That doesn't help either. G0. Okay, let's just forget that, because it is aligned. It does say it's aligned. So we'll leave that as it is. There's some dodgy CVs going on in here. I can see that. Also, this is the spacing of that is not correct. So I'm going to go into sliding these CVs around just to make that as close as squashed up to there as we possibly can, without affecting this curvature here. And we can bring this back as well a little bit, just so it looks a bit better. Now this doesn't look right in here. This is also not aligned here. Let me just make sure this edge is actually aligned, which it absolutely isn't. Right, let's align these to the surroundings first. So I'm not. You notice I haven't done this top edge at all yet. So this one here, let's go take partial off. So get that aligned there, and I'm going to keep the degree low. By a miracle, that's gone in without me doing anything to it, which is astonishing. But it's another little win. So we just need to get this top edge now to go in. So I'm going to just trim this surface back here. Am I? Maybe I haven't got all my curves on surface there. Oh, okay, I haven't finished that off yet. So I'm not going to trim that yet. Okay. So we just need to align these into here. I say just, but it's probably going to be a problem, I'm sure. So align, project, because this one's going to cause some mayhem, I'm sure. Yeah, I thought so. So that's aligned. Well, not aligned. In fact, it's massively out. It's 6 degrees out, which is quite surprising that it's that far out. And it's also broken that. And this is that problem of this edge here. So if I say revert, it may be that it needs more further detachment here. Let me just get rid of these other CVs off these surfaces here. We don't need those ones on. This one needs a bit of tidy up. So even if we're going to split this up, if we tidy it before we split it, it's always a lot less work than trying to tidy it after we split it. And in fact, when you split it up, once you split it up, you may not be able to see the CVs going up and down so much. But this one, hopefully, that will sort itself out with the align. That will do whatever it needs to do. It's just really these ones that just weren't flowing through there very well. So it looks like I'm going to have to detach this. This is just what happens in corners like this. So I'm going to, the big problem there is going to be this bit, because we're trying to align to that surface and that surface. And so if we press go on that one, so I've made it slightly smaller than the other one, marginally. Some of these locators will not behave themselves. They will object in a minute because I've done a detach. Wow, that's gone in. Incredible. That's nice. And then this one, hopefully. Now this is where it blows up, because it suddenly says maximum angle 9 degrees, position not matched. And it's because it's got confused. Because I've detached it, it thinks that locator is connecting one edge to the other, which clearly it's not. So that's where you can, if you can anticipate it, of course, you can delete the ones that you think are going to be a problem, or you can just wait for it to tell you, which is going to tell you down this bottom edge, that locator was to the old surface, which still works. This one's lost the locator, and for some reason that's gone off in position. No idea why, because I've detached it. I mean, it's 0.001, but I've detached it, but there's no reason that should have changed. Detach is 100% accurate, so don't really understand why that would actually be. Well, the only thing is it ends up analyzing it at different points slightly when you split it up. So if I make that position only and change this to curvature, it's okay because it's microscopic. This one I've aligned that way. We've got a small error in curvature there, 0.1033. So hopefully we should be able to fix that. Hopefully, without disturbing anything. So we've got position influence of 1 on, so that's good. I'm going to save that again. In these areas, I'm always saving very regularly. Because you never know when it's all going to fall to pieces. So I'm going to align that G2 there, hopefully. Now that one, I think I just picked the wrong edge there. I wanted to pick that one because they're overlapping. It was difficult to see the actual edge that I wanted. Now I've got a very low degree there, which I've managed to get away with so far, but I need to increase it at some point. So we'll increase that slightly. Or I might as well make it 7. Everything else is 7. Why not? And then on this edge, we're going to have to put a partial edge on there. Perfect. And these are edge and edge because our original surface was flowing on the edges, so that works. And then hopefully we'll be able to do this. This is bound to be another big problem, I'm sure. It's not too big a problem, but the problem we've got is here. Now I can see why. I can see why this is a problem, and it hadn't occurred to me until I've seen this and thinking, why is this happening? So we've got a big curvature mismatch there, 0.99. A bit of a curvature mismatch there, 0.15. The problem comes from this corner here, is that I've just built this, and as I was saying before, where we've got flowing edges like here, this all went in beautifully. It just went in without any issue at all because the edges flow through. This one, because I've just detached that at some point and split it across there, but I never looked at the continuity across there, and it's not that it wouldn't do it. It might have done it, but it's quite clearly that's causing a problem. The alternatives in that area are either we make this flow into that edge, which looks like it, is definitely a possibility and probably the best one, or we split this up even further, which I think I might do. I think I'm just going to split it up rather than trying to get that water flow in. The ideal is it flows in, but sometimes, you could imagine that sometimes this angle that we've got here, which is quite small in our case, could be quite big. It might be coming off at an angle down here, and then it becomes impossible to get it to flow in, and you have to split it up. So I'm just going to go and split it up. And again, this is going to cause some problems with the locators. They'll get confused about where we are, but no worries. We'll just split that. Now, because the problem's there, I'm going to make this surface much smaller than this one. This one shouldn't be a problem because it's away from the corner. This one's more likely to be a problem, so I'm going to split that there. When I start to try and align this, the first thing is let's get rid of those curves on surface because we don't want the old curves on surface in there. And we'll try and align these. Let's go Object, Align, G2, Edge. So we start off by doing this edge here. This is where it blows up, where it's finding the wrong edges, so we can safely delete that locator. It's just not relevant. Then we'll align this by projecting it onto that surface, and hopefully we'll get away with it. No, it's lifting it. It's a long way out. It's lifting that by, it's making that angle 4.8. Now I'm going to do something else here then, because sometimes you detach it on one side and it's not enough, and we have to detach it on the other side as well. So you can see why this is not the ideal solution, because we end up with many more surfaces than we could ideally get away with. If we flowed that edge in, we'd probably be able to get away with one. But sometimes you just think, let's try it. So I'm going to go and delete that curve on surface there. And then we'll realign this into here. And object edit, align project in the Z direction. That one there. So that's all fine, which is great. This one here is also good. So it's just this edge here that's going to be the one that's just not going to work. So I may have to resort to that one. We haven't got a curve on surface on anyway. May have to resort to, well, I may have to go back and do what I said, which is make that all flow through that way. So this is picking up the wrong side here. You can see what's happening here is that this throwing those CVs way up in the air, and that's what's happening because of that not flowing through. So I don't think it's ever going to work. You can also say by trying to align it this way, it's broken that again by a huge amount in terms of curvature. So it's just not going to work. So let me go back to my previous model, which is that one. Let's see if we can get this done. Ooh. So let's get rid of that locator. And so what we're going to do, I mean, what I could do is just take that edge and align it through here. That would be okay, but we'd end up with an SE shape. And if you ever wanted to get all of these planarized, all of these holes, I mean, they're slightly off now, but because we've done a lot of alignment and changes, but it's ideal if this is a straight line in a particular view. So what we can do there is we need to change this point slightly. So if I take that surface there, which we know we did a trim convert on before, I'm going to actually extend that upwards. So I'm going to go into extend and do what we did before, where we extrapolate it, whether it's linear or not. I can make it linear with no merge on, and what that would then do is take that surface and gives us a straight line extension of that as a separate surface. So it's like this is tanned into that surface, in other words. And then we can, so what I'm trying to do is work out where that point should be, because it needs to move around there somewhere. And I could do it just by eye, but I could do it this way as well. So if I go into duplicate that edge, and then we extend that edge through this way, and then I'm going to take that curve and that surface, and I'll just isolate that, and then we can do a trim on that. We can actually trim that back to that surface. So that point there is where it goes to, and then we could extend this surface back to here. So in other words, that all sort of lies on one plane. It's actually not quite right, actually, what I've done there. Let me just take that back. Get rid of that curve. It's a close approximation to what I wanted. What I should have done is done a duplicate of that curve there. And then if I go into object, edit, extend, linear, so I get a line, just a line off the end. Oh, on that, I want to pick the curve, create a line. So I've now got a line intersecting that. I can then go and trim that line back to this surface here, and then I can extend this surface back to the end point there. So make sure it's snapped onto the end there, and that tells me that that's where I need to split these surfaces basically. And so to do that, I could actually go into surface rail generation curve, one rail curve, pick one and then pick the other. That gives me a surface which I can then extend in all directions. I'll extend it that way as well. And then if we extend these surfaces that way and this one that way, and then I'll just isolate those so we can see what's going on. So I'll just take that one there, and then I'm going to convert that back to the intersect, that one. Then we'll go and pick this one and this one. So I'm doing the same thing there. I'm going to do a trim convert on that there. And we should put that surface into some, just going to put it in there. I don't know what, oh, it's not in there. I'll put it in scrap actually, just to get it out of the way. Just in case we need it again. Hopefully we won't. And then we can get rid of this. Actually, well, I'll just put that in scrap as well. Got some curves lying around which I want to get rid of. So I'm now going to save that. So what we should have is an edge which is planar. So by rights, all our CVs ought to be planar in between, or roughly speaking. And then we should, I'm hoping, be able to align all this lot. So have we got a curve on surface there? I'm not sure. We have. So if I put edit points on that curve on surface, you can see it more clearly. So let's go in to do an evaluate. So some of these edges will have broken, of course, in terms of curvature. Surprisingly, maybe not. Those are okay. That one won't be right. We know that. So now if we're going to object edit, align. So I'm going to align this one. So I'm going to get rid of that curve on surface actually and create a new one, because that's always the better way to do it. So align that, project in the Z direction, that one. Hopefully this will fix the problem. Again, this one, let's create a fresh curve on surface here. So I'm going to align this small one into the bigger one here, to the edge. There. So that's as good as it's going to get. And it's still lifting those CVs up quite a bit. Yeah, it might be that this underlying surface we need to do, we've aligned that in G2. Maybe it needs G3, because that's another possibility. Let's see. I don't think this is going to work. Yeah. So we've still got a big angle. In fact, it's worse than before, which is very surprising. So I think at that point, I might have to leave that and come back to it next time. So you can see how problematic these areas are. I think it's the underlying surface that's the issue. And it may, as I say, it might be that we need G3 continuity in there, or maybe the shape of it's just not right at all. I mean, it should be reasonably correct, but it may be that it just needs some work on that to get that to work properly. Let me just try once more with this edge. I don't hold out any hope. It's 5 degrees, which is a heck of a lot. So as soon as I do that, it's got an angle of 0.1 there. There's no point in splitting that up anymore. It's not going to help because there's some fundamental problem there, that something's not quite right, and I suspect it's just that underlying surface is probably just not the right shape. That if I put in some sections on there, maybe I'll see what the problem is. So let's go and make that 5 because we're looking at minute detail here. Yeah, it's difficult to make out from even that. Let's get rid of that. Let's make that 2. Get more detail. And if I pick that surface there, that one, it doesn't look like it's severely wrong, but the only thing I can see is that section on the underlying surface is a long way off where this top surface is. And so maybe if we brought that, modified that underlying surface so that this section is closer, maybe that will give us a better result. Because really this surface ought to be, ideally ought to be identical to whatever this corner is doing. And I know these are tiny amounts, but you'll end up with horrible highlights going through there if we don't fix this. So I think this is the issue, that the two surfaces are quite different, and I need to modify that underlying surface to be more consistent with what we want on the corner surface there.